What's going on, YouTube? Rdap Dan here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. So let's jump right into it. You've been charged with a white-collar crime, and you're wondering, what is federal prison like for a white-collar criminal? Stay tuned because that's going to be our topic. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Federal Prison Time with Rdap Dan. As always, I appreciate all of your comments, your views, your subscriptions, your likes. So make sure if you haven't already done so, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe button because that is what keeps this train moving. So let's jump right into this. Who goes to federal prison? If you would have asked me this question when I was a child, I probably would have said killers and murderers, rapists, things of that nature. Never in a million years would I thought a regular person that makes some mistakes in life could possibly end up in federal prison. But as we all are learning the hard way, and most of you that are watching these videos, you're probably getting ready to head off to federal prison yourself. And probably the biggest question you have is, what is federal prison actually going to be like? What do I need to worry about? Where am I going? Am I going to be safe? All of these crazy questions that run through your mind. So the reason you're more than likely on my YouTube channel is you are trying to find answers to those super hard to reach questions. So let's see if I can help you out with this. You're a white collar criminal. Maybe you've got tax evasion, mortgage fraud, some sort of embezzlement. Maybe you did something you didn't know you could actually go to federal prison for it, but in hindsight, maybe you did know and you just didn't pay that much attention to it. Whatever the case is, you're here now, you're on my YouTube channel, and you're probably facing a federal prison sentence. What is the big difference between a first-time offender, white-collar criminal versus a high-level drug dealer or a gang member that might also be going to federal prison? Well, the big difference is, chances are, if this is your first time going to federal prison, more than likely, you're going to end up going to a minimum security camp. Going to a camp is about as good as it's possibly going to get in federal prison. And I get a lot of emails regarding this exact topic, is they want to know which is the best camp to go to. Is there a huge difference? They've heard this about this camp. They've heard this bad thing about this camp. At the end of the day, just be happy that you're probably going to be designated to a camp. And if not a camp, probably the worst case scenario for most of you is you may be designated to a low security. But for all intents and purposes, let's assume you're going to a camp. So if you're going to a camp, your biggest worry throughout the day is probably going to be how to spend your day, what to do with your free time. Most camps are work-related camps where it's a lot of maintenance going on. You might be cutting grass, you might be riding the mower, you might be working at facilities. Most camps generally have a smaller prison population where they're kind of capped at a couple of hundred inmates, where a low, you might have several hundred to a couple thousand inmates. So what does that relate to as far as how the prison is ran? Well, in a camp, unless you have some kind of a medical purpose to not have a job, more than likely you're going to be issued a job shortly after being there. So it's good to try to pick the job that you want. Don't think you can kind of hide in the crowd and they won't notice you, because then you end up with the job that you didn't want. So take initiative, locate a job that you're willing to do, and try to earn the potential to be able to do that job. You're not going to make much in prison. You're lucky if you're making 10, 15 bucks a month, 20, 30 bucks a month. And the longer you're there, the higher you can move up in the rank. And, there's guys there that are making 75, 80 bucks a month, but that's about the most you're going to make in a prison level job. So in a camp, typically there's no perimeter fence that surrounds the camp. You might have one or two COs, correctional officers, that are actually patrolling the compound. So you're not going to see a whole lot of correctional officer activity. For the most part, you're kind of left to do what you want to do. The big important things are obviously your count time and being where you're supposed to be at all times, not deviating off of the prison grounds unless you're allowed to. But for the most part, within the confines of what you're allowed to do, you can pretty much go to and from when you want. It's called an open compound, open movement, where as a low security, Big difference is you've got a perimeter fence and you've got a lot more inmates, and you also are going to have a lot more correctional officers that are patrolling the compound. In a compound where I was at with 3,000 inmates, you probably had at any given time 35 to 50 correctional officers or different staff members that are walking around at any given time. So they're kind of everywhere. You see them every time you go anywhere. You're seeing several different COs or correctional officers walking around. So it's important to keep that in mind, because in a low, being in a perimeter fence security where you cannot leave the compound, instead of having open movement as in a camp where you have open movement, and I'll explain to you what that means, in a low you have what's called 10-minute moves. So the big difference is every hour in a low there's basically a bell that goes off, and it's called 10-minute move. So what that means is during that controlled movement, you can go from your unit to like the library, or from the library to the rec yard, or from the rec yard to the chapel. So that is your time to go to different places that are within the compound. You have 10 minutes to get to where you're going. Then they'll tell you 10-minute move is now over. So what that means is you better not be in transit at that point. Kind of think of it as when you're in school and the bell would ring, you'd have a certain amount of time to get to your next class. If you weren't in your seat by an expected amount of time, you would get what? You'd get like a hall pass. You would get a write-up, or I forgot what it's called now. You get like a write-up for not being where you're supposed to be. Well, in prison, it's kind of the same thing. If 10-minute move is over and you haven't made it to your destination yet, that means you didn't prepare and properly set enough time to get to where you're going, and that can lead you to get in trouble. That can lead you to get a shot. It's considered being out of bounds. You can lose privileges for that. You can lose good time for that. Ultimately, you can lose potential halfway house time for that. It could mess up things like Rdap, so it's a serious thing. Where in a camp, you have open movement. So for the most part, throughout the entire day, it's open movement. You can come and go as you want. You can go to hang out in the chow hall for 10 minutes. Then you can go out of there and go over to the library. You can take off from the library and go to the rec yard. You can do this without the controlled movement. Now, all prisons are going to have their standard count times, 2 or 3 count times a day. And what that consists of is you have your mandatory stand-up count times. This is basically where they do a check to make sure they know who's in prison and where you're supposed to be, make sure basically nobody escaped. So it's an assessment that they do throughout the day, and it's usually done 2 or 3 times. Being in a camp is obviously ideally where we would all like to end up and where we'd all like to start off, just because you're going to be doing easier time. Now, the hard things about a camp are, even though you're given more luxury or more freedom, comes a lot more responsibility. If you get caught doing anything that you're really not supposed to do, that can severely mess up any type of time that you're trying to do. And when I say mess up your time, it can mess up the way that you're trying to adjust your life and the way you're trying to get into a routine. That can completely cause waves and set off a ripple effect that can now have you moved from the camp to a SHU. If you get sent to the SHU in a camp, a lot of camps do not have a SHU on premise. So when you get sent to the SHU in a camp, usually that means you're probably going to be going to a county jail somewhere, where you're going to go sit in county jail for 15, 20, 30 days, 2 months, 3 months, however long you're being sentenced to the SHU for. Where when you're in a low security, they have their own on-site SHUs. So it's not like you're going to a different jail, you got to get transferred somewhere. They just bring you to another building within the compound, and then they've got kind of their own little lockdown in there where you go sit in the SHU. SHU stands for a special housing unit. So either way, you're not going to want to go to the SHU, but your responsibilities are greater in a camp. Some of the big things that people get caught up for in camps are definitely, I would say, cell phones are probably number one. Most of the people that I saw that got kicked out of a camp that ended up in a low where I was at, almost all of them got caught using a cell phone, talking on a cell phone, knowing about a cell phone. Conspiracies happen in prison all day long. So if you're cellie or your bunkmate or your cube mate, you're not going to necessarily be in a cell with a closed door. If you're in a camp, it's probably going to be open bay where you have, cubes, or an open dorm is probably the type of atmosphere that you're going to be in. And in that dorm, you're going to have, probably bunk beds where you have either bottom bunkie or top bunkie, and a little private space where you have like your clothes and your locker. Well, your bunkie may be stashing his cell phone in there that he, bought or that he's been using. And with your luck or my luck, that's when the COs come and do a shakedown where they start searching the unit for paraphernalia or for contraband, things that you're not supposed to have. And boom, up pops a cell phone. Nobody takes credit for it. So guess what? You're both blamed for having the cell phone. Doesn't really matter whose it was. It was in both of your possession because it was in your room. So it's yours. You're definitely, probably, almost all the time, they're going to remove you from the camp and stick you in a higher security, which you'll go to a low. This could cause you to lose good time. You're going to have to go through transit. Typically, you're not going to go straight from the camp to the low. You're going to go from the camp to a county where you're going to get held there, and you might be there a couple of weeks because they have to wait to have enough people to do a transfer. Now you're going to go from this prison to that prison to this prison where you're dropping different people off, end up driving across country just to end up back in low. Now you've got to either try to get in Rdap again, or basically got to make all new friends. So it creates a lot of unneeded anxiety and stress. Those are the things that get people in trouble most of the time. The things you're not going to need to worry about going to a camp or a low, especially being a white-collar type of a criminal, somebody that is not a severe murderer or killer or a rapist, you're going to be not worrying about these things because you're going to be amongst other people that are kind of like-minded. For the most part, a lot of people that are going to be in the camp, they've got camp custody, which means it's an open custody type of a situation to where if you had severe charges, you couldn't be in this camp. You have to have open custody. Like if you had a sex offense charge, you're not going to be in a camp. If you've got violent charges like gun charges, you're not going to be in a camp. So only a certain type of individual is allowed to a camp because of the open custody. Anybody that is a danger or has violent crimes could be considered a community controlled risk, because you can walk out of a camp really any time that you want. Yes, you'll catch an escape charge, but it's very easy to walk outside of a camp if you really wanted to. So that should kind of give you some ideas as what to expect if you're going to federal prison as a white-collar criminal and you're wondering what federal prison is going to be like for you. We all watch TV. We all see things like Locked Up Abroad and, the TV show Oz. And we start to wonder, man, is this where I'm going? Is this what federal prison is going to be like? There are some prisons that are like that, clearly, because they do documentaries on them. And documentaries they serve a purpose. Documentaries are not just to show the public what's out there, but documentaries also serve a purpose to generate ratings. And it would probably be a pretty boring television show if they went and filmed what goes on in the daily camp. Well, over here we have you playing volleyball, and over here we have a group of softball guys. And if you look over here to the left, you see the guys petting the ducks and doing yoga and singing songs and playing in a band. It's not the idealistic vision that people have of prison. So society in general wants to use prison to create fear so people don't commit crimes. So if they were to show, this guy came into prison weighing 355 pounds and he walked out weighing 180 pounds and his mind is better than it's ever been. He's healed issues. He's healed ailments. He's kicked his bad habits. He's made some great friends. He wrote a book. These are not the type of things that are going to make somebody not want to go to federal prison. And I'm not saying that you want to go to federal prison, but I'm saying, look, chances are if you're watching this video, you're probably going to go. So you might as well embrace it and make one hell of an experience out of it. Document everything that you do. Things that you can do in prison is endless. You can write a book. You can write a memoir. You can write letters home every day. You can email home every day. You can get on the phone and talk to your loved ones every day. If you're trying to appeal your sentence, maybe you're trying to fight it. You're not happy with the outcome. You went to trial and lost. You've got law libraries that give you every tool out there to litigate and fight, or mitigate and fight your case. You've got jailhouse attorneys who have come from the pen to the medium to the low, and now they're in a camp and they've worked their way through the system. And these guys have so much knowledge when it comes to law that they will probably make you wonder why you ever hired an attorney to begin with, because these guys they know it. because they've been fighting their case. And nobody is going to treat a case as important as you yourself. Once you're forced to do it and you realize you can't rely on an attorney any longer, and you're going through these motions on your own, you're going to learn these things and you're going to go, man, my attorney didn't do this and he didn't do that. Real quick, all of the flaws that you wish you would have known now, it's too late. You're already there, right? So yeah, so federal prison is not the worst place in the world to be. For some people, it's needed. It can be a retreat. You know, the food's not horrible. The events, the compound, the access you have to books, the access you have to the outside through friends and family, you're not going to be lost in translation. You know, people are not going to just up and forget about you. You're able to live your life in federal prison. Is it the ideal life that you want to live? Of course not. Would you rather be home with your friends and family? Yes. But this is a time to reflect on what got you to make these poor decisions to put you where you are now, because you can be sure next time you have a mistake like this and you make these same poor decisions, you may not be going to a camp. And if you are, you may be going for double or triple the amount of time that you're going right now. So look at this as a speed bump in life that's telling you to slow down, take a look around. Life's not that important to where you need to break all of these rules that are questionable to get ahead in life. You can be happy with what you had. I mean, how many of you right now would just be happy with not that much money in the bank, but your friends and family and your dog and your television and your remote control sitting on your couch? How good does that sound? Right now, a lot of you are probably sitting on your couch looking around going, man, I'm not going to have this for that much longer. This is going to be taken away from me. I'm going to be going to federal prison. I'm going to wish that I could lay in my own bed, use my own pillow, put on my own clothes. These are the things that we tend to take for granted, and we don't have to, but it's too late. We already made these mistakes, right? So now we got to go through this obstacle course of a situation to get back to where we want to be. And I'll tell you firsthand, going through this myself and now being out, it's very easy to forget what federal prison was like. If I wasn't making these YouTube videos every couple of days and talking to you guys 4 or 5 times a week, I could see how I would have completely blocked out that time of my life. Because if any of you have ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, what makes that unique in relation to prison is like one giant day. You pretty much, for the most part, your routine's pretty similar. You do pretty much the same thing. You wear pretty much the same clothes. You talk to pretty much the same people. Like variations here and there, but for the most part, it's day in, day out, day in, day out. A giant routine, hamster on a wheel. So when you leave prison, because it feels like one giant day, as soon as you start doing regular things in life, you're in the halfway house, you're going out job searching, you're buying clothes, you're eating the kind of food that you want. You've got all these new options that pop up in life. It immediately suppresses those memories from prison to the point where after a couple of weeks of getting out of federal prison, you start forgetting people's names and you start forgetting, you know, what did I do in prison on a regular basis? How did I get through all of that time? I'm telling you guys, pen and paper, document everything you do in federal prison, because there's going to come a point in time where you're going to want to reflect on where you are in your life in the future. I used to write letters to myself. I used to write letters, Dear Future Dan. And I would write a letter about how my life is, how I see myself now. And I would remind myself, hey, if I catch you doing this in the future and you start thinking old ways, you start thinking you need to make a quick buck and you can, move this, shake around this, I need you to read these letters and remind yourself of where you don't want to be. Because where I am right now is where you never want to be again. And I read these letters to that day. I wrote one letter every single day that I was in prison and wrote it home, whether it was to myself, my kids, my girlfriend. I wrote these letters every day, and it was as much for them as it was for me. Just like these videos are as much for you as they are for me. This is how I process what I had to go through. Making these videos to you guys reminds me every single day of what that, at the time, what that horrible time was like in my life. And I'll tell you guys, the worst part about it was where you are right now. The not knowing, the anxiety, the freaking out, it's kind of like You're looking down this tunnel, but you can't see anything at the end of it because you just can't see far enough, and you want to know so bad what it looks like. The minute you hit that prison compound, the minute you walk into R&D and they fingerprint you and they swab you and they take some DNA and they dress you out and they send you off to your unit, as soon as 30 or 40 minutes kind of it all kicks in, that anxiety just starts brushing off you second by second because that's it. You're here. Your expectations are probably not going to be met of what federal prison really is. So with that said, I really want you guys to take this time seriously. I don't know where you are in your situation. I don't know if you're just got indicted, if you've already been sentenced, if you're getting ready to go to your PSR interview. These are the things that you can control now. You can't control what's going to happen once you get into prison yet. You can control that when you get there. So let's focus on today. What are you doing today to help better the chances that you're going to have to A, get out of prison better, faster, that you're going to be able to do your time the way you want to do your time, that you're going to be productive with your time, and that you're going to put all of the pieces into place that could potentially reduce your sentence, whether it be Rdap, halfway house. These are the type of things that you need to be working on right now. And the areas that I really have tended to excel in with my clients are the personal narratives, the character reference letters. Your personal narrative is the letter that's going to come from you that's going to go to the judge. This is your last opportunity to have any hope of swaying the judge in his decision to downward depart on your sentence. It's your personal narrative. So if you just think you're going to jot some letter together at the last minute and throw it to your attorney and pass it on to your judge, sure, your attorney will do that, but the letter's not going to do anything. And I think you guys probably know that. And at some point, you're probably telling yourself, these letters don't matter. That's you lying to yourself because you're not willing to put the time and effort into it. Anything you're willing to put time and effort into will have a positive outcome and could potentially have a great outcome. Character reference letters are going to be your letters from your friends and family members. Same thing. If you just think you're going to get a bunch of letters at the end going, Mike's a really good guy and he goes to church and he helps his community and his mom's sick and his dad's sick and his kids are going to miss him and his wife can't live without him and they can't afford to live without him. Please, Your Honor, please, please, please. You think that's going to make any difference? Absolutely not. The judge has read that letter a million times from every other person before you. You need to be different. You need to be unique. Your letters need to have substance to it. It needs to show the judge that not only are you sorry for what you've done, but you're accepting responsibility and you're showing him with actions what you're willing to do. That's what we specialize in. We have some of the best writers that will take your personal narrative, that will take your character reference letters. We make edits, modifications, recommendations, send it back to you to make sure it's what you want in your letter. Send it to you and your attorney for approval. We try to get this submitted into your PSR, so it's important that if you want that to happen, you want to come to us before you've actually started your PSR. These things make a huge difference. Reviewing your PSR, once your PSR comes back, you want to make sure that there's no mistakes in there, and you want to make sure that your attorney has your best interest and that he knows what to look for. Question is do you know what to look for? Do you know exactly what you're reading and what that PSR should be showing you? If you don't, then how are you going to know to make corrections to your attorney, to tell him to make corrections with the prosecution and with the U.S. probation? You're taking on all of this anxiety and you're dumping it all on you at once to where you don't know what to do. That's why people like me exist. That's why I tell you, pick up your phone and call or text me at 509-434-4695. Yes, that was a plug. That was my phone number. In email, rdapdan@gmail.com. These are things that can make a difference. You want to get into Rdap. We all want to get into Rdap. We all want that year off. But it's important that your PSR, that interview, it needs to go a certain way. And if you don't, and you're just guessing and you're leaving it up to chance, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. It's up to you. It's 50-50. But I can tell you, by making that phone call early on and talking to me, it will enhance your chances tremendously. And if you don't believe me, give me a call and I will put you on the phone with some clients that tell you their story and their belief that if they had not spoken to me, they feel they would have not gotten certain things. You want that additional halfway house time. You want to get up to a year halfway house time. I hear all these prison consultants talking about the Second Chance Act. Oh, we're going to go through the Second Chance Act. Look, the Second Chance Act is just that. If you qualify for the Second Chance Act, that doesn't mean you're going to get the Second Chance Act. It just means you qualify. It's still up to your case manager to put you in for that. And if your case manager does not put you in for 12 months halfway house, which most of them do not, if you take Rdap and you successfully get through Rdap, you're guaranteed 6 months halfway house. But how do you get that extra 6 months or 4 or 5 months that you may need to go home the minute you finish Rdap? If your case manager does not put you in for the halfway house, what is your plan of action then? I have an answer for that too. That's what we do all day, every day. I did initially start doing this to do these types of things. I initially started making these videos to just help bring awareness, lower anxiety, but from the floods of calls and desperation and seeing what you guys actually needed, I've now made this my business. And this is what I do, and I do it well. I don't think there's anybody out there that can do what I do quite as well. There may be guys out there claiming to have all this experience, but at the end of the day, when you talk to my clients, and most of my clients prior to hiring me, a good handful of them have actually hired other prison consultants first. And you'd be surprised if you heard the names of the guys that they hired and then ended up coming to me in the end, and they'll all tell you the same thing. Dan, when we have a question or a concern, you pick up your phone, you answer your phone, and you always get the answer for us. You don't tell us to go randomly check another video. That's why I'm Rdap Dan. I'm here for you guys. Community is a method. The only thing I'm asking you to do is, if you're not going to call me, at least subscribe to my channel and watch future videos, because you never know what you're going to hear. I try to keep it jazzed up and spicy with good content that you guys need to know, and at the same time, maybe you guys want just an entertaining video. You're wondering what kind of food do they have in prison. So for those guys, we're going to have a video up here in a couple of weeks that's going to show you how to make some awesome prison pizzas, some prison burritos, some prison nachos, and I'm talking cheesecakes, stuff that would blow your mind, and you would probably eat this stuff for money if you're out at a fair, and you'd go, wow, this is really good. And we're going to show you how to make that with some typical prison items that you're going to get in commissary. So that will be a little fun video we'll throw up, take a break, roll up the sleeves, and get dirty. But with that said, I'm Rdap Dan, Community is Method. Like my video, share my video, subscribe to my channel. Without you, I'd be talking to a camera lens with nobody at the other end. Rdap Dan, take it easy, guys.